Today we're going to talk about roots and radicals. What are roots and radicals? They're actually two different names for the same thing. They have slightly different symbols but mean the same thing. Let's begin by talking about square roots. What is a square root? Well, the square root of a number, x, written with this symbol, this little symbol over the x, square root of x, this is called. It is a number such that when it's multiplied by itself, you get back x. So in other words, if I took the square root of x times the square root of x, whatever number that may be, it would give me x. In other words, the square root of x squared, the square root of x all squared, gives you back x. Let's take some examples with some numbers. For example, the square root of 25, we're looking for a number that when you multiply by itself, you get back 25, and that's 5. So the square root of 25 is 5, since 5 times 5 is 25. But 25 actually has another square root. The square root of 25 is also negative 5, since negative 5 times negative 5, or negative 5 squared, also gives you 25. So this number 25 has two square roots, 5 or negative 5. 5 would be considered the positive root, and negative 5 would be considered the negative square root. Let's take another example. What is the square root of 49? The square root of 49. Well, as we've seen, what number multiplied by itself gives you 49? Well, 7. Why? Since 7 times 7 equals 49. Okay, let's do some more square rooting. The square root of 1 is 1. Why? Because 1 times 1 gives me back that 1. And we call this the positive square root, this positive answer we get here. If we have a negative answer, because we know negative 1 times negative 1 will also give me 1, we call that the negative square root. So if we have a negative in front of that symbol, then it's understood that's the negative number we're looking for, the negative square root. And so the negative root of 1 is negative 1, because negative 1 times 1 gives me 1. Similarly, the square root of 4 is 2. The negative square root of 4 is what? Negative 2. Alright? So, generally, when we have this square root symbol, we're going to get the positive root out. But if we want the negative number, we'll put a negative in front of that symbol to indicate we want the negative root. Okay, the square root of 9 is 3. The negative square root of 16 is negative 4. Now, these are called perfect squares. Why? Because when I square root them, I get nice whole numbers, nice integers. But not all square roots are perfect squares. So for example, if I wanted the square root of 2, well, we're going to have to look that up on a calculator. So, I have my calculator here, and I plug in the root symbol, and put a 2 there, and then we'll get this number, 1.4142, and so on. That's what we call an irrational number. If it's not a perfect square when we square root it, we're going to get an irrational number. So the square root of 2 is this number, and we could only use a calculator to get that, or tables. There's sometimes tables to get this. So you should try and remember the perfect squares. For example, at least up to 144. What's the square root of 144? 12. Why? Because 12 times 12 gives me 144. So try and remember the perfect squares at least up to 12 times 12, and go further if you want to. Here's a question. What is the square root of negative 16? Well, we're looking for a number that when you multiply by itself gives you negative 16. Is it 4? Well, 4 times 4 gives me 16, so it can't be 4, because I want negative 16. So this doesn't work. Is it negative 4? Well, negative 4 times negative 4 also gives me 16, but I want negative 16, so that doesn't work. So the truth is that you cannot square root a negative number, so this has no real answer. And the reason is because any number when we multiply by itself is always going to give me a positive number. So we can't square root negative answers. In other words, this has no real answer, and there is a sort of solution to this which we'll get to in the future called the complex number. But we'll see that at another time. So just remember, you can't square root negative numbers.